Baker Mayfield, for perhaps the very first time in his life, is going to fear an Atlanta Falcons pass rush. Sorry, run it.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you do not know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. Mr. Drew, a.k.a. the iron that sharpens the iron, a.k.a. Mr. a.k.a. And I've been covering the Atlanta Falcons for almost 2 decades, formerly at FalcFans.com, RIP, still going strong as the humble host of this illustrious podcast. And I thank each and every one of you that go strong with me as everydayers. That means you make this podcast your first listen each and every day. And all you got to do to become an everydayer is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So today we'll be playing an interesting new game, the either or game, picking, between the Bucs and Falcons on which players will have the better or worse games come week one. We'll talk about the Falcons need to, quote unquote, establish the run and how critical that will be to their success. But we'll start off this conversation with none other than Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta, doing the thing that Jarvis just loves to see. He's been talking about this for weeks, if not months, basically since the draft, since the schedule came out with that week one matchup between the Falcons and Bucs, and that is to put Baker Mayfield on his back. Jarvis, my friend, how important do you think it is that the Falcons get after Baker Mayfield? Why do you think it's so important for this week one game, and why the Falcons can walk away with a W if they do so?
Because the number one thing that you have to do as a defense is you have to make the quarterback uncomfortable. And if you're not, and when he drop backs to pass and he's back there sitting there making breakfast, making some coffee, thinking about, what he's going to do for the day and laying out his plan and all that stuff, and he's still, no one's around him, he's kind of like, oh, okay, I'm still up. And I think that plays into Baker Mayfield's favor, because we understand that, he's a guy that wants to extend plays from time to time. So, and get outside the pocket and get that ball down to guys like Mike Evans and Mecca Ibuka, the rookie wide receiver that they brought in this year. So I think that is the key to life for Jeff Ulbrich and his defense. And I think that with him being the guy, the official guy, as calling plays and trying to implement something new, something fresh, which is GTFO, get off the ball, and they brought they doubled up in the first round with Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. And then you have those guys that's on the interior that's coming in at second year guys that are, the expectations have been raised. The level has been raised for Ruka Rororo and Brandon Dorless. So when you factor all of those things, it's a reason why those expectations have been raised, because you play in the NFC South, you're playing against a guy like Baker Mayfield who will torch you if you don't put pressure on him. Much as people like to talk junk about Bryce Young, man, we saw what happened when you don't put pressure on quarterbacks. Any quarterback in the NFL, like Geno Smith torched the Falcons back in the day when he was a rookie,
Mm-hmm.
and people thought he was going to be a great quarterback just because of what? The Falcons couldn't get pressure on him. So, yeah, it is vital. And I'll say this every week. You can say this every week in the NFL. If you don't put the quarterback on the ground, you're going to lose the football game.
Okay. Yeah. I think you make some excellent points, Jarvis. No notes. Thank you. I think obviously, we'll talk later about, the Elijah Wilkinson of it all, but there's also the Charlie Heck of it all, with him stepping in for Tristan Wirfs. And obviously a lot of the same things that we're talking about with the Falcons doing in order to, quote unquote, hide maybe a concern when it comes to Elijah Wilkinson, We imagine the Bucs will probably try to do similar things with Charlie Heck, whether that's play action, whether that's using the tight end to chip, running the football as a way to slow down the pass rush. I'm curious, when you look at that specific matchup, is there one individual player that you sort of point to, because we know that the Falcons are going to have a heavy rotation. All these guys are going to get opportunities. Guys are going to be playing on both sides, etc. But is there one that you sort of say, okay, this guy needs to be the alpha in this week 1 game? If someone's going to be able to exploit the Charlie Heck weakness or other weaknesses on that Bucs front, this is the guy that I need to sort of be leading the charge.
It has to be Leonard Floyd to me, because that's what you were brought in here to do. He's that guy. He's the guy that we barely saw. We didn't see him at all in any preseason games. We understood why they signed him. Hey, a 1-year deal, $10 million. Hey, boy, you need to get this quarterback. Oh, double-digit sacks recently. Oh, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Right? So I think this is one of those scenarios where Leonard Floyd is probably going to a brick and saying, hey, man, can I line up over him? As a matter of fact, I'm lining up over him. And you're going to put them youngsters over on the other side, let them deal with whatever, GDK, whatever you do, just sign a doggone new extension or whatever. So I think that this is the game that we have to say at the end of when that clock strikes 0 in the fourth quarter, they were like, man, but that boy Leonard Floyd, boy, he got off. And it was not because he's just this great player. It's just the simple fact that he was supposed to. And we pointed out weaknesses, tackles, injuries on this podcast, on the Atlanta Football Party, RIP, Falcon Squad. You know what I'm saying? We've talked about this, being able to take advantage of injuries. And I think that Leonard Floyd was bought in to do that. Like, when you have a guy like Tristan Wirfs going down, man, you have to take advantage of that, because it just doesn't happen like that often in the NFL when you get that type of matchup. And I'm sure the Bucs are licking their chops. Yaya Diaby, Hassan Reddick, all them boys is saying, yep, I know where I'm lining up at, wherever 71 is. That's Elijah Wilkinson for all you folks who just tuned in. So for me, man, it has to be the guy who's the hired gun. Like Leonard Floyd, you brought in to rush a passer. Let's see it.
Yeah. Well, you bring up, the Bucs licking their chops, looking at Elijah Wilkinson. We'll talk more about that. We'll talk about, whether or not the Falcons can run the football this game and how important that is going to be for their success, particularly if a player like Vita Vea misses time. And we'll get into all of that, guys, as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. And today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy platform that's going to turn your football predictions into real rewards. PrizePicks is going to make it easy for you to get in the game, whether we're talking about college football, basketball, baseball, and of course, pro football this Sunday. PrizePicks is easy to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get them right, you cash in and multiply your money. And I've already put in my PrizePicks projections. I already got Kyle Pitts more than 39.5 receiving yards. I believe it's actually lowered down to 38.5 receiving yards, more or less, for Kyle Pitts. And the beautiful thing is I can give away that projection and that pick for free, because it's me versus the projections. I don't have to worry about, we can have 1,000 other people pick Kyle Pitts more or less, and it doesn't affect it. That's the beauty of PrizePicks. So make sure you check it out by downloading PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, run your game. And also, today's episode is brought to you by Mazda, who crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive, and that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. As an athlete focuses on every detail, Mazda does the same, from the metallic accents to the hand-stitched Napa leather, and you can feel it in the moment you get behind the wheel, the smooth handling, the intuitive controls, and the standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. And whether it's a quick drive to practice or that weekend road trip, Mazda is going to make everyday drives feel special. It's the small details that make the big plays. And just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. So continuing today's Locked On Falcons here with Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta. Jarvis, I know you've talked a lot this summer about the Falcons' ability and need to sort of run the football as sort of the identity of their offense with Bijan Robinson. That is always a challenge for the Falcons against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, largely due to the presence of a literal something that is the size of a black hole in the middle of their defense in Vita Vea. And so it makes it really hard for the Falcons, particularly to run between the tackles. And so they often say, hey, well, we'll just run it outside. And when you have a guy like Caleb McGarry playing at the right tackle position, it becomes a lot easier, particularly when you're running to the outside to the right, where we've seen the Falcons have a lot of success over the last, 7-ish years, right? Mm-hmm. But you're not going to have that this week with Elijah Wilkinson. Now, Vita Vea is missed a second day of practice based off of when we're recording this Thursday afternoon. And initially when I saw that, he missed practice on Wednesday, I'm like, he's a veteran. He got a rest day. It's probably not a big deal. But the second day is like, oh, okay, maybe this is a thing. But when it comes to running the football, how important do you think it is that the Falcons establish a run against this Bucs team in week one? And what are some of the challenges? What are some of the things that the Falcons can take advantage of, in regards to whether we're talking about Elijah Wilkinson's presence, whether we're talking about, Vita Vea's absence heading into this week one game?
Man, for me, if you're telling me that Vita Vea is not going to be there, like again, taking advantage of matchups, taking advantage of people being out. The Falcons have to be able to do that if they want to get into the postseason, because that's what good playoff teams do. They take advantage of it, right? Because we know it's inevitable. It's going to happen. People are going to get hurt. Key players are going to get hurt. It's just all about that team being able to take advantage of those. And when you have a guy like Vita Vea potentially not being there, yeah, I know Drake London looks real scrumptious going up against Jamal Dean. Yep, I know this. I get this. But oh my gosh, like you said, when you have a black hole right there in the middle of that defense, right there behind a guy in Ryan Newsel who is probably chomping at the bit to prove that he's that guy, right? And the Falcons will believe in him wholeheartedly. But, I think this fan base wants to see it. They wants to say, okay, all right, I understand why Drew Dalman got shipped up out of here, because, hey, why they paying him all that money? If you can get some at least similar production or close to it, that type of production with a guy like Ryan Newsel. So for me, man, I have to say, yeah, if Big Boy not in there, I would run it, because guess what? Who's at that defensive end in that base defense? Kalijah Kancey. Kancey is a guy that, now granted, I love him rushing the passer, but he ain't the biggest person, in that base defense. So yeah, for me, yeah, man, I'm running that rock, man. I'm running that rock. So, and I feel like in order for, Michael Penix to kind of ease into this season, because I don't want him trying to win the game for the Falcons in the fourth quarter in game one. Mm-hmm. I would prefer not to see that type of pressure, right? In a divisional game. Yeah, let's get the ball to 7. Let's see, let's get him the rock. Let's get him involved in this offense. Let's pass it to him and let him go to work and see what he can do and see some of that blue magic early on. Yeah, I think that the Falcons have to be able to run the football if you're talking about a guy like Vita Vea not being there. Yeah,
and it'll be interesting to see, if a player like Vea misses time or is limited in some capacity going into this game. Sort of the change-ups, or as Zach Robinson referred to it earlier this summer, the mixers, when it comes to, not maybe focusing so much on running outside as the Falcons historically have with their outside zone run scheme, but running more inside zone, running more gap runs, trying to pull guys and do all those things. I'm curious, that's something that I've talked about quite a bit on this podcast over the last 6+ months. What are your expectations when it comes to the mixers, when it comes to the run game? Because we know Zach Robinson, we know Raheem Morris have said our staple, our bread and butter is going to remain the outside zone scheme. But how important do you think it is that the Falcons are able to add new pitches to their arsenal when it comes to what they can do on the ground?
I love the idea of the gap scheme, especially going back to what we talk about, Vita Vea not being there, right? Like double team slip, Chris Lindstrom, coming off of whoever they put in as that backup nose guard, and Chris Lindstrom getting up to the second level. I think the best guard in the league can get up to the second level and potentially have a one-on-one with the running back and that safety flying up there. So yeah, that would be perfect. That'd be amazing for this particular game, because everybody, looking at the numbers and how much the Falcons run their outside zone and how much success they've had with it, with Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry moving in sync, almost kind of like a symphony, right? Like they just so in sync when they're talking about taking that necessary step or that 90-degree step, in sync together. And it's almost looking like, oh my gosh, these dudes are dancing with each other, and for them to kind of feel each other and understand like when they need to get up to the next level, or when Caleb knows that Chris Lindstrom has his guy and he can kind of get on up outside, so Bijan can kind of bounce that bad boy out there and press that hole and bounce it outside and take it off for 15, 20 yards down the field. So yeah, I think the mixers are going to be very key, right? Because the Falcons, I would assume that Todd Bowles is expecting them to kind of trying to toss the ball around the yard because of the matchups that the Falcons have. They have some advantage. Sure. We talked about it on the Falcons squad, right? Kyle Pitts had two solid games against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year in the sweep, right? And people don't even want to talk about that much. It's like, oh yeah, Tampa Bay. I was like, yeah, the Falcons swept them last year. They kind of had, it was pretty convincing too, right? So, but I think that, when you have all those different things at your feet, right? You have the scenario where your right tackle is down. You have to have those mixtures in there. You have to be able to switch it up. You have to throw them off and say, oh, okay. And use this for example. Last year against, maybe Kirk Cousins, and with Kirk Cousins under the helm and at the helm, you maybe on third and 7 or third and medium or third and long, you were looking at X amount of plays or X options at a play. Maybe we look at a draw with a gap scheme, and try to throw them off a little bit, and you be able to break one, because Tampa Bay looks at film too. They're going to look back at the film like, okay, here's the situation. Here's what they did last year against us. And we're going to expect them to do those same things. And Zach has to have those mixers like you talked about, to be able to kind of have those off-speed pitches, right? To throw at them in order for them to kind of continue to move the chains, because that, at the end of the day, that's what you want to do. You don't necessarily need those mixers to go for 70 yards, explosive. You just need those mixers to kind of keep the chains moving and stay on the field, because the more you stay on the field, the more opportunity you're going to be able to put that bad boy in the end zone, and that's going to do nothing for your defense. That's going to do a lot for your defense as far as being able to play the style you want to play, and that is play with a lead. Because guess what? You want to be able to unleash all them peoples that you got over there to rush the quarterback. And and that comes down to my game plan for this week. Put Baker on his back. So all those things can really, just by implementing those little change ups on the offense side of the football, can have a nice trickle down effect for you to ultimately end up with a dub.
Okay, there you have it. So we'll see what mixers the Falcons can throw in when it comes to the run game. But speaking of games, let's have a little fun in this third segment that usually goes off the rails. We're going to play a little bit of an either or sort of to give you a taste of what we're talking about, which wide receiver one is going to have a bigger game, Drake London or Mike Evans. We'll ask Jarvis those questions as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. And today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash, who are going to be, helping us crown weekly MVPs this upcoming season with the Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. These are going to be the players that deliver the most when it matters most, just like DoorDash does, right? They're going to help you win on Saturdays with your DoorDash Streaks, just like these players are going to help the Falcons and other teams win on Sundays. And for us, as we look forward to who's going to help this team win, who's going to come through with no hesitation or no delay, just like DoorDash, we're looking at, of course, Michael Penix Jr., the Atlanta Falcons quarterback. And as we look forward to what he does on Sunday, make sure you check out DoorDash on Saturdays, who are going to deliver and also have the DoorDash Streaks that you save every Saturday that you order, stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday to keep your streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. So wrapping up today's Locked On Falcons, let's have a little fun here heading into this week one game. And normally, Jarvis, this third segment, we'd be getting into the nitty gritty of the game, but this is the beauty of week one. Like, we don't really have anything. We're just guessing. It's all speculation. Then we'll find out Sunday. Of course, if you guys want to get an hour and a half of post-game reaction, which I know you do, regardless of how this game goes, of course, Locked On Sports Atlanta and Locked On Falcons will have you covered here on YouTube as well as in your audio feeds with an hour-long postcast on the Falcon Squad show immediately following that final whistle, followed by a 30-minute rapid reaction here on Locked On Falcons. So go check it out and be there Sunday afternoon and evening for all of that. But Jarvis, as I said, third segment, let's have a little fun. We usually go off the rails here, so we might as well let's get the ball going. Why fight gravity at this point? Yeah. So I want to have a little fun, either or game, and just give me your thoughts. If you have some quick follow up to explain it, by all means. But if it's if it's pretty point blank, we don't need a deep explanation or whatever. But first one I have for you: which wide receiver one is going to have the bigger game, Drake London or Mike Evans?
Give me Drake London because I feel like there was a bell supposed to ring at that point, but yeah. But anyway, I think it has to be Drake London because, like you mentioned, Mike Evans has been in this league for 11 years. I feel like I like AJ Terrell against a 11-year veteran, in this league. And I feel like with the change of the scheme, he's going to be able to play a little bit more man coverage. So, hey, man, I trust AJ Terrell more so than I trust Jamel Dean or Zion McCollum. I'm just saying. Okay. I feel like Drake is one of those guys that's really on his path to be in the conversations with the top wide receivers in the league. I know people probably just gasped thinking like, "Whoo, what are you talking about?" Yeah, he's in there. He should be in those conversations. Look at the quarterbacks he's played with since he's been in the league. I'm just saying. So I feel like he's one of those guys that you can really take advantage of those matchups once they get the run game going, because I feel like that has to be first, And once they get that run game going, I feel like Drake is going to take full advantage of the guys that he's going to be going up against on Sunday.
Okay, Jarvis. I don't have a bell for you, but I do have an eagle screech. So there you go. That's the closest I can give you on that one. But number two,
copyrighted by the way. Just saying, bro. I want to get flagged.
Which running back duo do you think we're going to have more success when it comes to on the ground? Is that Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, or is it Bucky Irving and Rashad White?
Wow. I got to go with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. I mean, just from a pure talent standpoint, I don't think that's – I don't even feel like I even have to explain that one, because I just think they're just overall just a much more talented group.
Okay. Let's get that eagle speech. Okay, there we go. Which safety is going to have the bigger game-changing play, Antoine Winfield or Jesse Bates?
Ooh, now this is kind of a hard one, because I know that Jesse Bates is the better player, right? But what's more likely to happen in this situation? We're talking about the first game. We got nothing to go off of. Like, we ain't see anything in preseason. Antoine Winfield making a devastating play against the Falcons, or Jesse Bates, making one of those plays. And we've seen both.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like Antoine Winfield, man, he is bound to do something. If he's out on the field, he makes plays. He makes plays specifically against the Falcons. He always finds a way to do that. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go. I'll be in the path a little bit on this one. I'm gonna go Antoine Winfield.
Yeah, and we talked about on the Falcon squad. Make sure you got the ball tucked when you're crossing the plane, when you're about to score, because he will knock it loose. He's done that multiple times against the Atlanta Falcons. So I understand why you go with Antoine Winfield on that one. Anyway, next one. Again, this may be a little bit more of a stretch here, but I'm just trying to find connections here. Which former Buck or Falcon is going to have the bigger revenge game? Is that Bradley Pinion, former Buck, now playing with the Falcons, or is it Deion Jones, former Falcon, now playing with the Bucs?
Ooh, it would have to be Bradley Pinion, man, because I don't feel like we ain't gonna see Deion Jones, right? Like,
fair enough.
So yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Bradley Pinion on this one, because I feel, man, Bradley, solid, man.
He's a captain.
Solid captain. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Punter. Like, punter getting respect. So something there. Come on now.
There you go. All right, Jarvis, last one.
Mm-hmm.
This one is true to your heart. And so I feel like you'll have plenty of options to choose from.
Okay.
Which Georgia Bulldog will have the biggest game? And you have 4 to choose from. 3 for the Falcons, 1 for the Bucs. Charlie Warner, Leonard Floyd, Jalen Walker, or Tyke Smith?
So I feel like Tyke Smith is probably going to have a little bit of a rough one. I feel like it's a reason why he was a mid to late round pick. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to go there. But I think I'm going to go back to what I mentioned earlier when I talk about Leonard Floyd and being able to take advantage of a backup tackle. There's no person on this team right now that should be able to do that. And a veteran pass rusher, a guy who's been there, done that, gotten the double-digit sacks, been on a Super Bowl winning team, and he's a winner, and he knows how to win. He knows how to beat guys. Anybody who's been trained by Chuck Smith, I will vouch for all day, every day. So I feel like, Leonard Floyd is going to be the former dog to kind of show these young pups how to do it. Like, yep, come on, Jalen, watch me. James Pitt Jr., watch me. Watch what I'm doing, because I'm about to put the work on this guy, because like he deserves it, right?
There you go. Yeah. Well, let me get the Eagle screech in real quick, and then I'll give my thought on it. I don't know if I would have picked any differently on any of these questions, but for the last one, I'm gonna go with Charlie Warner, and it's not because I think Charlie Warner is gonna have a big impact in the stat sheet, but like we could be having a serious conversation of like Charlie Warner being like the secret MVP of this game, because I think the Falcons are going to need Charlie Warner to step up when we talk about running the football to the outside. You got to have that great perimeter blocking. Charlie Warner does that.
Yes,
right? When we talk about those insert runs that the Falcons love to run, and again, trying to nudge Vita Vea out of the hole is a lot different beast. And if you don't have to deal with that, then it becomes a lot easier doing that against a Logan Hall, or, if the Bucs want to put Kalijah Kancey in on early downs, by all means, be my guest. But that, as you said, I think that's going to be a problem.
Please.
Yeah. He's a problem on third downs, but, he's also a problem in the opposite way on some of those early downs. But, and I say that as Kalijah Kancey went to, the greatest university on the planet, the University of Pittsburgh.
Oh, that's the greatest one on
yeah. So they tell me, every time they hit me up for alumni donations, they're like, "This is the greatest university on the planet, so give us money." So I'm like, okay. Yeah.
Have you responded to those said?
No, I haven't. I have not. Please lose my number. If you're so great, you don't need any money from me.
How did you get my number, by the way?
But Charlie Warner, impact in the run game. Talk about chipping, helping out Elijah Wilkinson. That's going to be a big part. of this offense. And again, talking about Kyle Pitts and his breakout potential, do we get to see a lot more 12 personnel than we saw last year, especially with Darnell Mooney potentially being limited? Do you want to get, Kyle Pitts more involved in the passing game, but you still want to have that tight end rather than having Kyle Pitts stay in and chip and then release again, which is fine when you have Darnell Mooney out there. But if you don't have Darnell Mooney, do you want to replace that with Kyle Pitts as a more of a pass catcher? And then you still have the tight end and Charlie Warner out there trying to chip and help out and all that stuff. So I feel like this could be like secretly a very big Charlie Warner game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. I love Charlie Warner, man. The way Zach Robinson used him in year one, and he was just such a special addition to this offense. And we saw how towards the end of the year, he started to replace Kyle Pitts. And so I feel like Charlie, man, that I love that pick, actually. And I actually thought about, making that pick. But I think this is one of those things. That's one of those mixers, right? You come out a little 12 personnel to kind of switch things up a little bit, so you cannot be as obvious, when it comes to the run pass situation. So I think that's something, that's another mixer that can be thrown in there. Again, not for necessarily for the big play, but to keep the chains moving. That's what you want to do. You want to just throw different things out there from time to time, so you can put that on film on purpose, so people can say, hey, okay, this is another thing. This is another look that we have to prepare for. And I think if Zach Robinson can do that, I feel like he can prove to you that, he's a comparable, offensive coordinator in the NFL.
Well, Joe, I don't know why you say that. I'm the biggest Zach Robinson supporter there is out there on the planet. So, I told folks in the Locked On Falcons Discord, I've been playing both sides all off season. If Zach struggles, I mean, I told you guys this guy didn't have it, and if he's great, it's like, hey, he was listening to the podcast. We broke down exactly all the things that he had to improve upon, and he followed the blueprint. So I'm going to win no matter what. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I'm going to win no matter what. I always come out on top. Yes. So that's how you play it, guys. And so if you want to see if this Falcon team comes out on top, make sure you tune in for our post-game reactions on Sunday afternoon, again here on Locked On Falcons as well as Locked On Sports Atlanta. So make sure you subscribe and follow on your preferred podcast platform, whether you're checking us out on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all of the above. It's all available for you there. And of course, to get you guys geared up for the rest of Sunday's action, make sure you check out some of these divisional previews over at Locked On NFL, including the NFC South preview, talking about, who's going to challenge the Bucs. Is it the Falcons, the Panthers? That other team that is not going to challenge the Bucs, right? They'll challenge for the number one pick. Yes, that's what they'll be challenging for. But, shout out to Thomas Dimitrov, do your thing, I guess. I don't know. Check us out. We'll be back on Sunday. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.